Robert Craig, just an old man reading from his Bible. I am that old man. This is the Bible I read from, my work Bible. This is the Holy Bible, King James Version. Now, we've been going through Mark's Gospel, and just as a reminder, this is one of the four Gospels that tells the story of the earthly ministry of Jesus of Nazareth. He wasn't known as Jesus Christ in those days, at least only to a very few people. He was known as the Christ. But he was Jesus of Nazareth. They knew where he came from. And many of them doubted him because they figured if he really was the Messiah, they would have thought he should have come from Bethlehem, which, of course, shows that they didn't know. But we have come to chapter 6, and he's just sent out the 12 to minister. And we come to the story that tells how John the Baptist died, came to his end. Verse 14, and King Herod heard of him, for his name was spread abroad. That's speaking of he heard of Jesus. And he said that John the Baptist was risen from the dead, therefore mighty works do show forth themselves in him. Others said, it is Elias, and others said that it is a prophet, or as one of the prophets. But when Herod heard thereof, he said, it is John whom I beheaded. He is risen from the dead. For Herod himself had sent forth and laid hold upon John, and bound him in prison for Herodias' sake. This is the woman that he cohabited with, that he kind of stole away from his brother. He had bound him in prison for Herodias' sake, his brother Philip's wife. She was actually his sister-in-law, and he was keeping her in a kind of a common law arrangement. Or I guess maybe they did. Maybe they were bigamous. For he had married her. So I guess that's what they were really. They were committing bigamy here. For John had said unto Herod, it is not lawful for thee to have thy brother's wife. Now the fact that he had married her showed that he had openly defied custom. He didn't even sneak around about it the way King David did. Therefore Herodias had a quarrel against him and would have killed him, but she could not. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was a just man and an holy, and observed him. And when he heard him, he did many things, and heard him gladly. I think that just shows that Herod had a great interest. He was intrigued by what John was preaching. Verse 21, and when a convenient day was come, that Herod on his birthday made a supper to his lords, high captains, and chief states of Galilee. The chief estates of Galilee would have been those most wealthy families among the Jews that lived there. And when the daughter of the said Herodias came in and danced, and pleased Herod and them that sat with him, the king said unto the damsel, ask of me whatsoever thou wilt, and I will give it thee. Evidently she had made the party a hit, we would say. It's nothing new that men have found a fascination with the female form, especially in movement. I think that's what was going on here. Let's just say they were entertained. He says, Ask of me whatsoever thou wilt, and I will give it thee. And he sware unto her, Whatsoever thou shalt ask of me, I will give it thee unto the half of my kingdom. And she went forth and said unto her mother, What shall I ask? And she said, The head of John the Baptist. And she came in straightway with haste unto the king, and asked, saying, I will that thou give me by and by in a charger the head of John the Baptist. When I was young, I remember they used to say, if you mess up in this way, somebody's going to have your head on a platter, and that's kind of where that that commonly used phrase came from originally. And this by and by phrase, I think that just indicated her, she's saying, I'm not demanding this be done instantly. I'm going to give you time to send and have it done. And that's just my take on it. I could be wrong there. I never was a big grammarian, but I think I learned the elementary grammar a little bit. Verse 26, And the king was exceeding sorry, yet for his oath's sake, and for their sakes, which sat with him, he would not reject her. See, an oath was a very binding thing in those days. A man who wouldn't honor his oath had no honor at all. And that was one thing that was dear to Herod. Honor among his peers. Verse 27, And immediately the king sent an executioner. Now, later on, I believe in English terms, that would be a headsman. He's a trained specialist in removing heads from people. He sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in the prison, and brought his head in a charger, and gave it to the damsel, and the damsel gave it to her mother. And when his disciples heard of it, as John's disciples, they came and took up his corpse and laid it in a tomb. Now we come in verse 30 to the return of those 12 who were sent out in the last video. They were sent out to preach in the cities, and whoever wouldn't receive them, shake the dust off their feet as a kind of a testimony against that city. Verse 30, And the apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus, and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said unto them, Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place, and rest a while. For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. And they departed into a desert place by ship privately. And the people saw them departing, and many knew him, and ran afoot thither out of all cities, and out went them, and came together unto him. Did you know that in a lot of cases, when a boat is sailing alongside of a shoreline, the people on the land can outrun the ship? They saw he was leaving, and they weren't going to let him get away. We see in verse 34, in Jesus, when he came out, I take it to mean when he came off the boat, saw much people and was moved with compassion toward them, because they were as sheep not having a shepherd. And he began to teach them many things. So this was just a big unorganized crowd. They had no leadership among them. So he sat down and began to be their leader in teaching. Verse 35, and when the day was now far spent, his disciples came unto him and said, This is a desert place, and now the time is far past. Send them away, that they may go into the country round about, and into the villages, and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat. He answered and said unto them, Give ye them to eat. They say unto him, Shall we go and buy 200 penny worth of bread, and give them to eat? That's a pretty hefty little pile of coin there. A penny was an expression for a day's labor, as well as being a coin. It was about the standard for a day's labor, and it would represent, well, probably more than 8 months' wages for a man. So you're talking a fair amount of money here. And that was their question. Shall we go and buy 200 penny worth of bread and give them to eat? He saith unto them, How many loaves have ye here? Go and see. And when they knew, they say, 5 and 2 fishes. And he commanded them to make all sit down by companies upon the green grass. And they sat down in ranks by hundreds and by 50s. When he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fishes, he looked up to heaven and blessed and brake the loaves and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fishes divided he among them all, and they did all eat and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments and of the fishes. And they that did eat the loaves were about 5,000. Verse 45, and straightway he constrained his disciples to get into the ship and go to the other side before unto Bethsaida, while he sent away the people. And when he had sent them away, he departed into a mountain to pray. And when even was come, the ship was in the midst of the sea, and he alone on the land. And he saw them toiling and in rowing, for the wind was contrary unto them. And about the 4th watch of the night he cometh unto them walking upon the sea, and would have passed by them. But when they saw him walking upon the sea, they supposed it had been a spirit, and cried out, for they all saw him and were troubled. And immediately he talked with them, and saith unto them, Be of good cheer, it is I, be not afraid. And he went up unto them into the ship, and the wind ceased, and they were sore amazed in themselves beyond measure, and wondered, for they considered not the miracle of the loaves, for their heart was hardened. When they had passed over, they came into the land of Genesaret, and drew to the shore. Now remember, the last time he was there, he healed a man that had a legion of demons. And they went into the pigs, and the pigs were drowned. And the man that was delivered asked if he could return with him. And he said, Go into the city and tell those people what great things the Lord has done for you. So this is probably the reason he left him behind, to relate the telling of that miracle. I mean, and who better to represent the work than a man who had once been possessed with a demon and couldn't be kept bound with chains. Verse 54, and when they were come out of the ship straightway, they knew him, and ran through that whole region round about, and began to carry about in beds those that were sick, where they heard he was. See, the last time he was there, they were confused about what had happened, and they're they're pressing him to get back in that ship and sail out of here. We have had enough trouble for one day. Now they have an understanding of what went on, and they know the opportunity is there, and they bring the sick, and they carry them on beds. Verse 56, and whithersoever he entered into villages or cities or country, they laid the sick in the streets, and besought him that they might touch, if it were but the border of his garment. And as many as touched him were made whole. And that looks like a good place, because we're up to another subject here. And we've run up to some time here. So I think this looks like a good place to stop. I'm just going to make a little mark here. Y'all mark your Bibles, I presume. But for now, I will just say, with great respect and reverence, may the Lord bless this reading of His Holy Scripture. And to you that watched the video, hope you got something out of it. But at any rate, I thank you for watching.